General Sanders has made no secret of the fact he thinks the British Army is too small. The current Conservative government has cut it to its smallest size in more than 300 years. And General Sanders made the point that over the last 30 years, the British Army has halved in size. He's made the point that he sees the current generation of soldiers as a pre-war generation, rather than living in what's been defined as the post-World War II, the post-war era. He talks about the pre-war era, and that was a phrase picked up by Defence Secretary Grant Shapps earlier last week. The point he was making about mobilisation, he was saying it is prudent to prepare for national mobilisation. He was saying that it is essential countries take steps to be ready to move onto a war footing. But he wasn't quite going as far as saying we must be on a war footing now. He wasn't quite going as far as saying we need to mobilise now. He was making the point that the country, Britain and indeed NATO allies, need to be ready. It's also fair to say that these comments have rather blindsided the government, have blindsided Downing Street.
Everyone only says that Putin is threatening a nuclear bomb, although not once has such a thing been said, unlike the Europeans and Americans. The same Germans said that the North Atlantic Alliance also has nuclear weapons. The British, the former Prime Minister, said, "I won't hesitate to push the button. Don't threaten us."
We have to stay firm to our values and principles, democratic principles, to continue with or remain committed to our unwavering support for Ukraine. And as I said, this is not only about Ukraine, it is about Europe, security. Russia should strategically fail in Ukraine. If not, it might not stop at the Ukrainian border, because the war, in their case, it's ideologically and geopolitically driven.
There are 3 meetings to conduct the reduction.
Governor Abbott of Texas just invoked self-defense against the border incursion and the migrant crisis. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Chris Martenson. Let's talk about this. This is a really big deal. And he cited invasion from an article in the U.S. Constitution. And guess what has happened after he did that? All of those states in red, including little old New Hampshire right there up near where I live, have joined in and said, yeah, we agree. This is a very serious thing. Abbott sent this letter off to Biden saying, hey, you're not following the law, and so we're reclaiming the law for ourselves. And it's gotten pretty spicy ever since. Guess what? Kristi Noem, the governor of North Dakota, has also said, I am on my way to the war zone. Her words, not mine. And she said Biden is failing, or that's Biden's handlers, because let's all be honest, Biden's not really doing anything, I don't think. It's his handlers, though. Who are they? Love to know. So we will continue to do everything we can to help secure the border, she says. How about this? Oklahoma getting ready to send their National Guard to help Texas in their fight against illegal immigration, or as you now know if you've watched my other piece, migration, not immigration. This isn't immigration. It's not a contained, controlled, thoughtful process. This is just a flood of people coming over the border and unvetted, unknown, and that's a big, big issue. And we'll talk about that in just a second. So this was the letter from Governor Greg Abbott, January 24th, 2024. I think this is going to be a very famous day that's going to go down. This kind of read like a letter to King George, you know? His first sentence, the federal government has broken the compact with the states. Big deal. Let's look at this part in yellow a little bit more closely. He says here, quote, James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and the other visionaries who wrote the U.S. Constitution foresaw that states should not be left to the mercy of a lawless president. Goes on to invoke various articles in the Constitution, clauses. Says here that he says, for these reasons, I've already declared an invasion under Article 1. This is to invoke Texas's constitutional authority to defend and protect itself. Line in the sand. Federal government has completely failed, full stop. They failed to protect not just Texas, but all of the United States. And this is a very serious issue now. So game on. I'm actually quite pleased to see this, but we have another angle on this. When I was down in the Darien Gap recently, we saw a lot of military-aged men coming through, and we saw military-aged Chinese men, well-muscled Chinese men with stiff backs and strong demeanor like you would expect from military people. Can't say for sure that they were, but kind of sus. At any rate, on January 17th, this letter goes out to the Speaker of the House, the Majority Leader, the Chair, and House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. We've got, the Homeland Security and Government Affairs, all of that. So this is a letter that's written, and let's look at what it says here. It says, Dear Mr. Speaker, Senate Majority Leader, Chairman, as former senior executives of the Federal Bureau of Investigation with deep experience combating dangers to the nation, we write to express our concern about a current specific threat that may be one of the most pernicious ever to menace the United States. The danger arises from the nature of the threat itself. Wars and espionage and bombings and riots are sadly familiar delivery systems of instability, intimidation, and security. The country, they go on to say, is in really deep trouble because in 2021, the demographics of those crossing the porous southern boundary, started to shift. Young men from around the world traveling alone and holding questionable motivations dramatically increased in number to become the most common profile of those breaching the nation's borders. The most common profile. Young men, all on their own, without any attachments and unknown motivations. A startling number have been found on the terrorist watch list, true, or are from countries designated as state sponsors of terror distinctly unfriendly to the United States. Hey, if the United States has bombed a country for the last 10, 20 years and it's probably created some enemies, and we're just letting those enemies in across the border in an unvetted, unfettered way, that's not good. So